Welcome aboard the BK Escape Pod. That's right, it's the augmented and bionic podcast version of the live show. You can hear us Saturdays from 10 a.m. till 12 p.m. Eastern on 100.3 FM and AM 1450 WBHF Radio. You can stream the show live there Saturdays at WBHFradio.org or on the free Tunein app. Look out, here we go. Oh, and by the way, if you hear me give out a telephone number, don't call because this is a rebroadcast, and our janitor Charlie will answer the phone, and believe me, you don't want to talk to him. He's an ornery little cuss.
And no sidewinding, bushwhacking, hornswoggling, crocker is gonna roll away biscuit cutter.
Now, who can argue with that?
Rub it!
Stand by to receive our transmission.
Well, look out, it's BK on the air here. Saturday, it's time for me to take control of this place for at least 2 hours. I don't know if there's a Braves game today. Is there not a Braves game coming today?
Not in time to ruin your...
To chop off my last half.
No, there is
of
a
my
Braves
show,
game.
Least, but
they got to play game 4.
Me up, so.
They lost game 3.
Yeah, having a good time here on Saturday. Last show, we did American Pat McCormack with the Golden Age of Television, talked about American Bandstand on Saturdays, and we joked how that's when I came on. We left and went outside. Well, I hope when I come on, that's not your cue to get out and go outside.
Well, it's time to go outside.
Hey, even if you do, you can take us with you with your earbuds and listen to us on the stream on WBHFradio.org or the TuneIn app or the Radio Garden app. And take us with you and listen to us as you run around and run your errands and do Saturday things and stuff like that. Because, believe me, I've seen Saturday morning television now, and I'm probably more entertaining you and I than anything that's on there now that you can get.
Isn't it sad when Saturday morning kind of just that programming went away?
Yeah, because now they don't show cartoons exclusively on Saturday because now you can always see cartoons on some network 24 hours a day now, so it doesn't really matter, I guess. Now, MeTV tries to do it on Saturdays. There's a guy called Tunein with MeTV or something like that. And it's Toon. He'll play classic stuff from the old days. He's got a little puppet with him and stuff like that. And I haven't got to watch it or anything, but I've seen it on Facebook, and a lot of people say, yeah, it's pretty interesting. It reminds me of Saturday mornings again. I do want to remind everybody that Halloween's right around the tombstone, man. It's coming up pretty close as this show is broadcast. Every Halloween.
It's 2 weeks from Monday, isn't it?
Every Halloween, October 31st, no matter what day it falls on, we always here at WBHF do a Halloween spooktacular from 9 p.m. till midnight Eastern. And we could sit there and go, yeah, well, okay, let's do it on Saturday night because it's Saturday night and it's close to whatever Halloween it is, either the Saturday before Halloween or Saturday afterwards. No, when we talked about doing this, we're like, let's do it on the actual date because it gives it a little more bit of authenticity of happening on Halloween.
Willing to lose a couple hours of sleep to be on the actual holiday.
And have fun.
Yeah.
Because we don't care. If we stay up late and we got to get up early the next morning, it was for a good cause.
It's for a great...
We liked it.
It's our trick-or-treating.
Yeah. It's our version of trick-or-treat. I may be putting together something that people can win, like by coming down to the station Halloween night and doing something in front of the window. And I'll have this big bucket of candy or something like that.
I'm here on Friday nights. I don't know that you want to encourage that.
It's just it's the thing that I want them to do in front of the window that I haven't decided yet. Maybe we can talk about it. So
I will say this again.
Candy or something like that.
Why is it the people that you don't want to see naked that want to try to do something in the window?
Or go or at a nudist colony?
Right.
Everybody's like, I want to go to a nudist colony because I want to see a lot of heavenly bodies walking around. I'm like, it's the last
There were
place
last
you
night,
go.
as football was starting to wind down, you could tell they had had a few drinks, and there were like 3 lovely ladies.
Right. Oh,
and then
really?
this dude goes, hey, look at these, and he lifts his shirt, and he starts rubbing it. I'm like, First of all, in what universe have you ever thought that I'd be interested in a male chest glob? Blob.
I don't know, Alan. Maybe he just thought you had that look.
You should probably go home.
Maybe he just thought you were kind of cute or something.
The other three women I would have been okay with, but no, they were modest and decent and recognized society.
We're all, and
I had to avert my eyes.
It's no secret you and I and Walt love Halloween, and we're going to have another Halloween show. What is it? Is this our 6th or 7th annual?
8th.
I'm wrong on both counts. 8th. We've been doing it for 8 years. This is our 8th annual Halloween Spooktacular right here on WBHF Halloween night from 9 p.m. to midnight. And
it's going to be a lot of fun.
We'll entertain calls. We're putting together maybe a guest list. I do have a special thing I can kind of break and tell you. Listen, because if you're love over the Jaws franchise, or rather the first 2 Jaws films, which are the only ones that are great.
Yeah, I agree.
There was a book that came out called Jaws 2: The Making of a Hollywood Sequel. And we'll have the author on live on Zoom. He's going to talk to us about why he wanted to write the book, about the book. I need to let you and Walt borrow the book and read it because it's actually really great, learning all the behind-the-scenes things about Jaws 2, how they started with a completely different director and fired him and brought in Jean Schwartz, the French director, to direct it, who's actually a pretty good director in his own right. He directed a movie Somewhere in Time with Christopher Reeve. Mm-hmm. He directed, now I'm going to name some bombs, but he did direct some other movies. He directed Santa Claus the movie, which actually I love watching Santa Claus the movie during Christmas. I've always liked it. It's a guilty pleasure about Santa Claus. He directed what else? He directed Supergirl, the DC Warner Brothers Supergirl movie. Since Christopher Reeve wouldn't come back and do Superman, but he eventually came back and did Superman 4. They're like, well, let's do Supergirl, and it's the Salkinds produced it, the same people that made the Superman films, but he directed it, and he directed a movie called Bug in 1975, which was a horror film about some cockroaches that came from underground that were from volcanic. They lived in the underground near volcanic, underground hot volcanic core, magma. Yeah, magma. And when they would come out and attack, they would get on you and they would spontaneously combust and burn you up. It was just a weird horror film, and he directed that movie. So Jaws 2, at least it has the feel of the first Jaws movie. It has the same cast, set in the same place. So it looks like it just is a continuation
most of
of
the
Jaws.
same cast.
Yeah, most of the same cast.
Hooper's not there. Quint, he's not around anymore.
Yeah. Well, Quint was in several places, I guess.
Well, he went to pieces.
But we'll have the author of that book on to talk about it.
He chewed on it, but wasn't available. Sorry,
that's you all over. So that's going to be nice to talk about him, and it's still in the works. We're still putting it together, so we're looking forward to doing that. We love Halloween.
Last year we didn't have any planned guests because we had so much we had to talk about, so much content. The 3 hours were done before we knew it.
And by the way, you and I and Walt like to send messages to each other and go, okay, let's talk about this. I've come up with this idea to do. Let's do the list of this and let's do the list of that. Well, I've tried to every year come up with stuff that we haven't already done before. So now at this year, I'm a blank. I have no idea. I have no idea what to talk about.
Remember 2 weeks ago I said, think about your list. Let's start sharing it. Not a single thing has come through.
Without repeating the lists we've already done, because we've covered it all already.
We've done favorite candy, worst candy. Candy you eat first, candy you eat last.
It's almost like stock. At a grocery store. Well, let's rotate the stock. Let's bring what we've already done 8 years ago.
That's what I'm wondering.
Bring it back.
Should we go back to year one and say, well, what were we? I don't even remember year one. I'd have to go dig in the archives.
I don't either. All I remember is it was fun. That's all I remember.
But here's the crazy thing. Every year there's new horror movies.
Right.
But the problem is, and my wife and I have realized this, when you've seen so many, the newer ones that might scare the younger generation don't do anything for us. We look at it and go, why is this a movie?
And I'll tell you the one thing I like to do. I like to come up with movies and stuff that aren't part of the mainstream. Everybody talks about Frankenstein, Dracula, Friday the 13th, Halloween. I try to go, hey, those are great movies. How about let's look at these that I think are also great, that are lesser-known films. I like bringing up those, too. So we'll think of something. We always do. And plus, we have a good time. You can just listen to it and tell that we love it.
No matter what, we're going to have fun.
Speaking of there, we're going to take a break, and we'll be back. We'll hear from the Golden Radio TV and Pat McCormack.
Sponsored by Post Cereals, the cereals that make breakfast a little bit better.
Shh, gold!
Burglars!
Great four-folded gold!
That's golden sugar on Super Sugar Crisp. It's not a treasure.
It isn't?
It's a treat. And Super Sugar Crisp is part of a balanced breakfast.
It's a treat! A super door's on a Super Sugar Crisp. The beast is asleep. Awaken at your own peril. Zoo is open. Caution. Animals are not caged.
There's 6 different Super Door signs, one in each specially marked box of Post Super Sugar Crisp cereal.
The lunar rover the astronauts left. I got it running.
Let's go to the other landing sites to hunt for Tang instant breakfast drink.
Not now. Sit down.
You know how to drive this thing?
Of course.
Not so fast.
us. Oh, I hope we find Tang. We need a full day supply of vitamin C.
I want orange flavor.
I like grape flavor.
They're both delicious.
Look out.
This looks familiar.
Oh, we're home again.
You were navigating.
Look, Tang! Why didn't you tell us?
Now back to the show.
Oh, yeah.
Greetings, fellow classic TV fans. Carl Reiner helped to forge the genre known as the TV sitcom, and his creation, The Dick Van Dyke Show, became the gold standard. When asked what he felt was one of his funniest episodes, he said it was in Season 2, Episode 20, entitled It May Have Looked Like a Walnut, and as a matter of fact, it's ranked number 15 out of TV Guide's 100 greatest TV episodes of all time. In the style of The Twilight Zone, Rob and Laura are watching a scary sci-fi film before bed. She's terrified, and Rob mischievously rubs it in. As a form of instant karma, he then dreams that evil walnuts have been brought to Earth by an alien, played by Danny Thomas, to steal everybody's identity and their thumbs. He thinks he's being pranked and then just dreaming, but he just can't wake up. It all culminates with him opening a closet door and outpours thousands of, walnuts. Then, as if it's normal, Laura comes pouring out with them too. Reiner said the audience laughed for what seemed like forever on that one. And this was just one of the many examples of the comedic genius of the legendary Carl Reiner. For BK on the Air, this is Pat McCormick with the Golden Rage of TV.
Thank you, Pat, for the Golden Rage of TV every Saturday. Carl Reiner. Have you noticed, I don't know if you've looked at him lately, but the guy that played Mike Stivic, Meathead on All in the Family, Rob Reiner. Became a
I know who
director.
Rob is.
The older Rob gets, the more he looks like his dad.
Huh.
I mean, that happens. They did so much when they were younger. I've noticed that about Ron Howard from Happy Days and Andy Griffith Show. Ron Howard and someone else who turned into a director. Did you ever see it? Were you familiar with Ron's dad, Rance Howard?
Nope.
He was an actor. He put him in some of his movies and just a bit part. He was in Andy Griffith in a couple episodes, just playing different characters. And he's in Ed Wood, the Tim Burton movie. I don't know whether you remember Ed Wood, the scene where Ed's trying to get financing, played by Johnny Depp. Ed's trying to get financing for his latest movie, and he goes to this meat slaughterhouse company to meet the guy who owns it, and he wants money from him for backing of his movie. And the guy who playing him is Ron Howard's dad, Rance Howard.
I did not know that.
And he's so mad because he has to compromise his films for the people who are backing it, who are producers. And he goes,
okay, two things. Number one, I want the movie to end with a big explosion. Sky full of smoke.
Yes, but it ends with Dr. Vornoff falling into the pit.
Not anymore.
But Rance Howard, I'll show you a picture maybe at the break. Rance Howard, if you look at Ron Howard now, he's starting to look just like his dad, Rance Howard. Chris Pine looks like his dad now when he's getting older, the guy from Chips. His dad was in Chips, Robert Pine. He's starting to look like his dad now. I guess that happens to a lot of us as we get older. We're look like one of our parents, one or the other, because we do have two.
I look like the milkman.
Wait a minute. What? Don't.
I
dad
still
know?
love to this day when this happens. Because my brother Philip, who I just helped him move, he definitely has more of my dad's characteristics and features.
Oh, yeah, I've seen Philip. You're right, he does.
Compared to me, I've got more of the Paquette side of the family. I look more like my uncle, which is my mom's brother. So I look more like that side of the gene pool.
I remember your dad. You look a little like your dad, too.
We were together in my brother's kitchen, and this person who had just met me for the first time goes, I don't see it. I'm like, what do you mean you don't see it? He goes, I don't know how you two are brothers. And then all of a sudden, Philip's wife comes over. She said, watch their facial expressions. It's not that they have the same overall features,
right,
but they act the same. And I was like, yeah, that's usually what calls us out. We all have the same goofy kind of like reactions to things. So,
well, this is something I want to talk about last. Now, people say I have more mannerisms of my dad than look like him. So I'm like, well, he's my dad. I didn't have much choice in that. But I do have my dad, may he rest in peace. Rest his soul, miss him to this day, and so do you yours. I do have my dad to thank for getting me started in radio, because back when I was in high school, he goes, you like to record things on video, on audio tape, and you do this and you do that. He said, why don't you go down to WAGC AM's 1560 down there and just see if they could, just go down there and apply for a job. I'm like, out of the blue, Dad, just walk in. He's like, why not? He goes, what are you going to do otherwise? What have you done so far? I'm like, come on. So I went down there, lo and behold, they're like, yeah, okay, we'll give you a shot. I'm like, wow. So my dad actually says, my dad was goofy and crazy and loved to crack jokes and stuff. And even my mom goes, yeah, you get that from him. My mom's a homebody. She doesn't like to travel, doesn't like to go anywhere, likes to stay at home. She doesn't like to. She has a 25-mile radius around her home where she doesn't like to get out of it, out of her comfort zone. But my dad was just the opposite. He joined the Army, he went to Germany, he did this, that, and the other thing. And I am happiest when I'm traveling and just going places. I said, I can't stay at home. So she goes, you got that from your dad, too. I'm like, okay, well, maybe I got some of his better attributes. That's nice because he had a temper, too, and I don't know that I got that. So I think my sister got that.
Yeah.
So, a potpourri of different things go to different kids from your parents, if you think about it. So, yeah. But I wanted to talk about this last week. And I did talk about it a little bit, but a lot of people have had a chance to see this. And it's the Halloween season. It is October. And
it's the Halloween season.
That could work, too. But we have to sing it spooky. It's like,
it's the Halloween season. Woo.
With spooky spooks. And I don't know, something else. I have to think about it. I don't have a brain that can come up with songs.
Well, with our show coming up, it's Goofy Goofs, too, coming up. Well, it is Scary October. And right now, if you haven't seen it yet, go to Disney Plus. You can check out the new Marvel short. They call it short because it's only a 50-minute long kind of short film. It's not even episode length. It's a little longer than that, but a little less than a movie. It's called Werewolf by Night. And Werewolf by Night was a short-lived comic book character in Marvel in the 70s. They did some things with him. I think they brought him back in the 80s and the 90s and updated him a little bit, and it was a different guy. But he was a werewolf. He was a guy that turned into a werewolf. Marvel acknowledges the monsters. I mean, there was a Frankenstein comic book they did. There was a Tomb of Dracula, very successful comic book they did that actually Blade is from. Blade, Wesley Snipes' character, now the new movie they're doing, actually came from the Tomb of Dracula.
Are they going to do a new one?
Well, I think they are. If they grab Sam Raimi, like I hear the rumors, that would be nice if they do it because they lost
I
the
thought there
director.
was a now indefinite pause.
Maybe there is, kind of like Star Trek 4. So,
yeah.
And James Bond isn't on pause. They're just waiting and hanging out, just waiting. So we'll have to be satisfied with the other film franchises that are coming out. This comes from Variety.com. Werewolf by Night. Director Michael Giacchino explains how he convinced Kevin Feige to let the horror special be made in black and white. How come I hear this story all the time. Someone wants to do something in black and white, modern, in the modern times. They meet resistance every time. And I can maybe understand. I can't understand, but I know it's the producers going, with a cigar. No, nobody wants to see black and white, man. So it's a world of color. Don't do that. Just film it in color. But it's an artistic thing. I want to make it black and white for a reason. Well, Marvel fans tuning into Werewolf by Night that last Friday on Disney Plus may be surprised when they read the director's name. I was certainly surprised when I saw it. It's Michael Giacchino, who's far better known as the Oscar and Emmy-winning composer of movies like Up from Pixar and the TV show Lost, not to mention other high-profile, big-grossing films such as recently The Batman from Warner Brothers and the last 3 entries in the Spider-Man franchise from the MCU. And that's just some of them. His catalog is huge, and we'll get into more of it as we go along. Let me say this about The Batman with Robert Pattinson. Michael Giacchino's score for it was different from anything else he's done, and man, was it an eerie score and went to it very well.
I'm still blown away by that
score.
film.
Was great. It was great.
It's so good.
But as Giacchino reminds us, he's been behind the camera since he was a youngster at Edgewood Park North in New Jersey. Quote, I love making movies, he says. I've loved it since I was 9 years old, and that's what it's about, gathering every kid in the neighborhood and creating movies in my parents' backyard, unquote. That's what he did. He later attended the New York School of Visual Arts, and while his career ultimately took him into music, scoring such other popular films as The Incredibles, the 2 Mission Impossible films, the 3 Star Trek films of the Kelvin universe series from J.J. Abrams, and 3 more Jurassic World films. He always wanted to get back to his movie-making roots, though. Giacchino had already helmed 2 professional shorts called Monster Challenge and one of the Star Trek Short Trek series. I didn't know that he directed one of those, too. So when Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige offered him the chance to direct a Marvel project, Giacchino immediately suggested Werewolf. How about Werewolf by Night, an obscure comic from the 1970s, they said. I knew it as a kid, he says. I still have my comics to this day. He also incorporated the title character from another obscure 70s Marvel title, Man-Thing, the swamp creature. Now, not to be confused with Swamp Thing, the DC character. Marvel and DC, one would come up with a character and the other one would come up with one like it.
That
which
never
was similar,
happens
which
in
was
Hollywood.
kind of that kind of
We'll make
competition.
a volcano movie. No, we're making a volcano movie.
We're making a science fiction Star Wars movie. No, now we'll make a science fiction movie. And actually, when our science fiction movie came out, we'll say in the tagline, better than Star Wars. Yeah. The new Star Wars, which is usually always incorrect when they put that on there.
When you see that, expect the opposite.
Run away, usually, when that's the case. Or the new Indiana Jones movie. It's as good as Indiana Jones. So monster movies, he says, to me, are nothing but allegories for people with problems. He's right about that. Every time I would watch King Kong or the Wolfman, and everyone would be chasing them with torches, trying to kill them, I would always feel so badly for them. I'm like, guys, he doesn't want to be doing this. He doesn't want to be rampaging. He's got an issue and he needs help. Well, the Incredible Hulk was kind of like that too. He was much more of a Jekyll Hyde Frankenstein than a superhero back in the day when Stan Lee was talking about the Hulk back in its early days. So Werewolf by Night isn't just a scare fest. It's an homage to the 1940s, in a way, horror films like those 70s comic books were. It invites sympathy for its characters and even has a little sense of humor as well, which I thought it was a great balance, not just all mindless humor like Thor: Love and Thunder was and some of the other things. Giacchino especially admired 1982's Poltergeist as a film that wonderfully walked the line of heart, humor, and horror. I won't argue with that statement. Very much so, and I just recently watched it again.
Watch it.
He says it's not easy. You need a lot of checks and balances doing something like that. If a story keeps its sight on heart, humor, and humanity, then you are free to do some crazier stuff on the fringes of that story, unquote. Mm-hmm. Not only is he a good music guy and director, he's a smart guy, too. The 53-minute one-shot, that's right, it's only 53 minutes long, is also in black and white. In my mind, he said from the beginning, it needed to be in black and white. He says there was a skepticism from the upper echelons of Marvel, he hints, so it was filmed in color, but we had a special monitor that allowed me to see what it was going to look like. It felt like we were going to do something new for the Marvel Universe. Let's really do something bold and different. That's really what I wanted to do. So, paraphrasing.
Well, that's the thing to keep in mind. Black and white is a skill, and to learn how to light for black and white, totally different than for color.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad he had that tech.
And it's you and I both watched it, and he is as far as the camera angles and how it was directed, I thought it was wonderfully put together.
Cinematography out of this world.
Very scary here and there, very eerie. So check it out, Werewolf by Night on Disney Plus. It's Halloween. What a great time to watch it in October.
Somewhere deep in the woods in October.
Now, did you hear that? How do we always end up in these spots near Halloween?
I know, right? I mean, why do we wait until dark?
And not only that, but we're being chased by three classic Universal creatures: Dracula, the Wolfman, and Frankenstein's monster.
Wait, listen. I think I hear them.
I am the vampire. I'm going to drink your blood. Oh, curses! I'm losing my teeth. It's a full moon. Oh, my hip. You cannot escape, for I am Frankenstein's monster. I will... Oh no. My back is out again. Or rather, whose ever back this was.
Aw, hey, you guys hear that? The monsters are out of shape.
Yeah, they're so much older now.
Why don't we slow down and let them catch up?
Tune in to WBHF Radio October 31st for the 8th annual Halloween Spooktacular, 9 p.m. till midnight. Brought to you by Southern Cove. Because these guys aren't getting any younger either.
Well, that was weird. That was uncalled for.
Need to hear that.
This Halloween, you can't escape the shock, the terror of Werewolf by Night.
Tonight, it is every hunter for themselves.
Good luck. I'll be rotting for you.
But one of you is a monster, masquerading as one of our own. I can't wait to find out what breed of evil you are. You wanna see this, darling?
Please don't do this. Death is coming for you!
Werewolf by Night.
When it comes to shows about movies and comic books, heroes and crazy news, I tune into BK on the air from 10 to noon Saturdays.
Well, I hope you do too. 10 to noon on Saturdays, or you can catch the podcast. If you ever miss the show, I do turn it into a podcast and take all the goofy local commercials out. No offense to them, by the way. They're great sponsors. But someone in Germany or Canada or across the globe, they'd rather hear maybe something else that has nothing to do with that. So I add little goofy, shiny bits to it and spruce it up as a podcast. You can hear it on, go to my YouTube channel, BK on the Air, Spotify, Anchor, and SoundCloud. There's 4 different ways that you can hear the show as a podcast. The BK Escape Pod, in case you miss the show. It's that wonderful, lovely, snuggle bunny fuzzy time that we like to flash the audience of the news, the weird, the strange, and the bizarre. And look at that. I have the first news. Got stuck there. I'm sorry. No, record gets stuck. Oh, goodness, vinyl needles getting stuck. I just made a joke that somebody might not have gotten under the age of, what, maybe 25? I don't know. Well, no, vinyl's coming. It's back. They do use records now and stylus needles, so maybe records still get stuck every now and then.
You get a scratch and they start hiccuping?
When I was trying to switch media platforms for home video, we had videotapes, then we had RCA video disc players, then we had big laser discs, then we had compact disc, and there's always some new thing to come along to watch. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot beta videotapes were smaller. Betamax.
You had Beta
they
versus
were even smaller.
VHS, but VHS won that battle.
The RCA video discs, they were interesting because they weren't read with a laser. They were read with a needle, kind of like a record, which was odd for them. And sometimes they would get hung up. And if I was watching a movie, it would skip and get hung up just like a vinyl record would sometimes. I mean, a character could be sitting there, Romeo and Juliet. It's like, oh, Juliet, wherefore, Romeo, wherefore, and I'd have to hit it, dial Romeo. And it was,
and the killer, and the killer, and the killer, and the killer.
It would.
Somebody bumped the player.
If it got hung up on a Jackie Gleason line from Smoking the Bandit, that would have been fun.
That is so funny.
You
I can't believe you just said that.
What?
I was going to tell you off air. The comedian we saw just the other night was talking about the album he bought. He goes, remember that Columbia for one penny? He goes, they didn't tell you the fine print. We got to buy 4 more at like $150 a record.
That's right.
He goes, one of the albums I got was the Smokey and the Bandit score, so I could relive the movie. Because he goes, Jerry Lewis. He goes, Jerry playing that Eastbound and Down. He goes,
Jerry Reed.
Sorry, Jerry Reed. Yeah. He's like, and he had that one track. It was called CB Talk. And it was the shit. And he goes, my daddy heard it. He goes, my daddy heard it over and over. He goes, we don't talk like that in this house.
Wow.
And the whole joke was, after telling the story, his dad came and goes, you know what we're going to do? Since you can't stop yourself from playing that track, he took the needle and scratched that track.
No, really?
He goes, that'll keep you from playing it. He goes,
oh, that's terrible.
And dang, if the next time I didn't play it, I get caught on the loop. So he goes,
barely.
He said, I just took that record off, put it in the sleeve, waited by the door. I knew my daddy was coming, and he just took it. He goes, think of it as only 12 for a penny now, son. I can't believe you just brought that up, and that was in my head to tell you.
Tied into the stupid RCA video discs.
You and I,
see how
the
we do
fact that our brains are linked is a problem.
And it wasn't even something you said. It was something you saw a comedian say, and we linked it in together.
Right, because I was going to tell you about it. I was like, I'll tell you about that off the air. Now I can tell you on the air.
And it's so funny how you said it was Jerry Lewis instead of Jerry Reed. So then I started thinking, if Jerry Lewis had done the Smokey and the Bandit song, he'd be like, he's bound down, lady. Funny, probably. Jerry Lewis from Smokey and the Bandit. Let me.
I'm the snowman.
Because you remember he did play a Buford T. Justice sheriff in Cracking Up, the movie Cracking Up, when he gets out and pulls the guy over, and he's obviously doing Jackie Gleason,
right?
And he looks at this car, and his gun accidentally goes off and blows his patrol car up at the end of the scene.
Well, if you need a ride, I got my car right over there. Well, he has it. The dude is so big he can barely get out of the car. And put your hands on the car, and he doesn't. It pushes.
It's a little Honda Civic. He pushes it off the cliff. No one gives Lewis's later movies any credit. I thought Cracking Up was funny, and I thought Hardly Working was funny too. Those are 2 funny movies he did in the 80s, and they were so funny.
I'm telling you, there are.
I can't get it out of my mind now. Jerry Lewis is Smoking the Bandit. That would have been a whole different movie. We already had a guy in Smoking the Bandit in Jackie Gleason with a big ego. If you put Jerry Lewis in there, there'd be 2 egos on the set that you could not go on the set with. So let's try this one more time. It's time that we flash the audience.
My abs hurt.
That's funny.
This is a good workout.
From UPI, a new Netflix horror mystery thriller called The Midnight Club has broken a record for the most scripted jump scares in a television episode. How appropriate to have this story here at October with Halloween looming closer. Guinness World Records announced the feat on Wednesday, saying that the episode's 21 jump scares are a record for a television series. I've never even heard of this show. Maybe we should check it out now. Now, Guinness defines a scripted jump scare as a pre-planned action executed with the intent to make a person jump or scream in fright as you watch it. According to Guinness, series co-creator Mike Flanagan said that one of the reasons he wanted to break the record was to pacify producers who are always asking him to add in jump scares. So there you go. There's one of them that breaks the record for jump scares. I didn't know they kept up with that.
My wife and I have this conversation with others when we're trying to find a movie to scare us like the movies of our youth. Like, what movie can make it? And she goes, and I don't count jump scares. She goes, jump scares are a cheap way of getting a scare.
They are, yes.
She goes, if they're used judiciously, fine. But that doesn't mean the movie was scary. The fact that you played something really loud and had somebody jump on the screen, yes, it's startling.
A thunderclap in a storm can make you jump scare, but it's not scary
But
per
that
se.
doesn't mean that I'm going to think about that movie for months after going, I can't sleep at night.
No, you're right.
So, all right. I got the next news. And that's from UPI. A group of 8 skydivers jumped out of a plane above Florida and broke a world record for the largest formation of jumpers. Only 8?
What's the big deal about that?
The Jumpers Over 80 Society, or JOES, organized the attempt at Skydive DeLand as part of a 3-day event for the International Skydiving Hall of Fame celebration. What's so impressive about this group? All of them were over 80.
See, at the beginning of the story, I thought, okay, jumpers over 80, that means they were just going more than 80 miles an hour, I guess, as they fell down. What did that have to do with it? No, they were over 80. All of them were over. So that's kind of impressive, then,
8
isn't it?
in formation, and they're all up there. Hey, come on, link arms.
I think that's.
I'm trying.
I think that's very horrible for you to assume that they all talk like that. You know, not all 80-year-olds sound like that anymore. I know some 30-year-olds that talk that way.
It's true.
It's
could be hard living.
Old before their time. I got the next news from UPI. Officials in a Texas city said a small purse from the 1950s was found inside the walls of a former school building, and they have now identified the owner, believe it or not. The League City Historical Society and the Clear Creek Independent School District said the purse was recently found during a renovation work at the League City Community Center, which formerly served as the League City School. Quote, the purse was full of what looked like a wallet, and it turned out to be a diary. Picture it as today's Facebook. You're putting everything down. You're writing down stuff. She wrote about her love life, who she broke up with, and things like that. League City Historic Society Vice President Richard Lewis said in a video posted. The purse contained the name Beverly Williams and numerous photos dating back 50 to 70 years. Officials say they were able to contact the family of Williams, who attended the school in the 1950s, and Williams, who was born in 1945, died in September of 2016. The officials said they were able to speak to Williams' daughter. She was blown away by what we said to her, Lewis told the Houston Chronicle. Well, there's a cool ending to a story like that.
Interesting.
I mean, I want to find something cool in a place that I'm renovating, like they do sometimes, like gold and
I'd like
bars
to
of
find
money
like
and
a draft of the Constitution or Declaration of Independence.
Or a Picasso painting
that'd be nice
somebody
too.
Just put back in there or something.
Yeah, found this at a yard sale.
Yeah, and sold it for $250 million.
Ugh.
Great.
I've got the last. Maybe I don't. I'll do this fast.
You can do it, Joe.
A German man with the love of Rubik's Cubes earned a Guinness World Record for his collection of 1,519 rotating puzzles. Florian Kastermeyer, age 40, was awarded the record for largest collection of rotating puzzles from Guinness. Verified it after they said they saw all 1,519 different Rubik's Cube-style puzzles of all shapes and sizes. Kastermeyer said his love of the puzzle began at the age of about 16 years ago when he found an old Rubik's Cube while cleaning out the family attic.
Have you ever in your life solved a Rubik's Cube? Did you ever solve one eventually?
Nope.
No matter how long you had it?
I could do the pyramid.
Or any of the puzzles?
I couldn't do the cube.
Oh, you could do the pyramid one. See, I don't know if I could do that.
I could do the pyramid.
I couldn't do that. I don't memorize video game patterns. I don't have this analog like Spock-like logical brain. I can't do that. I guess it's pushed out by all the goofy radio jokes and stuff I talk about. Speaking down there, we're going to take a break.
But I know how to cook.
When we come back...
We will return after these messages.
Sure, Sir Isaac Newton unraveled the mysteries of gravity. But could he have unraveled the mysteries of Rubik's Cube? 3 weeks ago, Judge Smith retired to her chambers with Exhibit A, Rubik's Cube. She hasn't been seen since. Warning, once you get your hands on Rubik's Cube, you may never be able to put it down. Rubik's Cube, over 3 billion combinations, but just one solution from Ideal.
In a Ford Model T, you can depend on just about everything, except the weather. In a Ford Pinto, you can make your own weather. Pinto's price is so low you can afford a sunroof, air conditioning, a rear window defroster to make the weather inside your Pinto as dependable as your Pinto. The economical little Pinto. Base sticker price $24.42, excluding dealer prep, destination charges, title, and taxes. At your local Ford dealer.
Fat, drunk, and stupid is no way to go through life, son.
You're listening to BK on the Air. This is Mrs. BK. And I'm not listening now because, well, I sleep in every Saturday morning. But I'll catch him later on the BK Escape Pod podcast. Now, back to that man of mine, BK on the Air. Mwah.
Well, I happen to know that not today. She's not sleeping in today. She's heading deep into the mountains of North Georgia, into the city of Dahlonega to celebrate Gold Rush days. That's a city in North Georgia that was big on mining gold back in the day, and they celebrate no one finding gold anymore by remembering when they did find gold up there. It's a big block off the whole area. There you go, doing that old guy's voice again. They don't all talk like that, come on. Some of them talk like this. It's funny how we act. Well, wow. It's not funny, but we did just get back from Universal, and one of the rides I rode was Hagrid's magical motorbike ride through the dark forest. Well, we just got word. I didn't learn it till yesterday. I don't know when it actually happens because sometimes these things happen and they report them a couple of days later. Robbie Coltrane, the Harry Potter star who played in Harry Potter as Hagrid, the beloved Hagrid, has died at 72. And I have the story here from Lauren Overholtz from Fox News. Robbie Coltrane, like I said, just known for the Harry Potter films, has died. The actor's agency WME confirmed to Fox News Digital that he died at the age of 72. Coltrane's agent Belinda Wright said he died Friday in a hospital in Scotland, but she did not give a cause. Coltrane was born in Glasgow and made his acting debut at the age of 12. He attended the art school and eventually appeared on the television series. I'm sorry. This is printed incorrectly. It says he appeared on the television series Flash Gordon. That is wrong. He appeared in the movie Flash Gordon in 1980. He was right at the beginning of Flash Gordon. It says also TV shows Keeping It in the Family and Black Adder. I remember him being in that. He continued to make a name for himself with roles things like something called the comic strip, which I haven't seen, and he landed the role of the British TV series Cracker in the 1990s. His performance earned him 3 BAFTA awards.
That's like the British version
of the Emmy.
It's the British. It's the British Alliance for Film and Music.
And it's like their Emmy Award, right?
Yeah, it's like their Academy Award.
Oh, Academy Award for a TV show,
for
TV, like an Emmy Award. The actor had a successful film career. Yes, he did. Coltrane appeared as Hagrid, a half-giant, in all 8 Harry Potter movies. He also landed roles in the James Bond films GoldenEye and The World Is Not Enough. His Russian guy in those films, he's hilarious as the Russian guy that is a love-hate relationship with James Bond because he shot him once and then he's his friends and he helps him out later. And there's a hilarious scene in GoldenEye where he has this bar in Russia where he's his mistress at the time, who's played by Minnie Driver, who a great British actress herself, but she's on stage in a cowboy hat in GoldenEye singing "Stand by Your Man" by Tammy Wynette, but she's singing it horribly with this Russian accent. She's like, "Stand by your man." And he's like, James Bond, Pierce Brosnan, he's like, "Who's strangling the cat?" He's like, "That is my mistress. How dare you say that?" But it was just so funny. And James shot him in the leg years ago when they had an encounter or something like that. And he goes, "My leg aches every winter, and I don't forget it because you did it." And it was just a great character he played as a Russian. Now, his manager said he was proud to be Coltrane's agent all these years. And by the way, he was in Flash Gordon, and I didn't really remember him that much in Flash Gordon because he's only in it for 4.5 seconds at the beginning when Sam Jones as Flash Gordon's getting aboard the jet to take off to take his trip to where he's going, and Robbie Coltrane is there, and he puts the steps up by the jet and closes the door. So the very next thing, though, I remember him in is Robbie Coltrane was in a movie that you and I are both familiar with, and I think maybe you and I are the only people that saw it, because no one else saw it. It was Krull from 1983. Robbie Coltrane is one of the guys, one of the rebels in Krull.
We're one of the two who saw
in
it.
1983. I love Krull. I thought Krull was a great movie.
I enjoyed it.
Liam Neeson is in Krull, too. They were both not stars back then in 1983. Now, it's so funny. Don't you think it's weird when the stars of a movie, Ken Marshall was the star of Krull, Lisette Anthony was in it as well. And they were up-and-coming stars back in the early 80s. Well, it's funny how two guys that were in it just in bit parts went on to be bigger stars than any of the two stars of the film ever thought about being. That's so wild how that happens sometimes. But yeah, Krull and Flash Gordon, those are two movies earlier in Coltrane's career. Did you get to see the Harry Potter reunion on HBO Max?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Was it the 25th reunion?
It was the 20th.
It was the 20th reunion, but it was a little later. They aired it a little later than the 20th due to COVID or whatever, kind of put them back and set them back. Well, he appears on there, and this is a clip I'm going to play of Robbie Coltrane talking about being Hagrid and the kids, the kid cast in Harry Potter and stuff like that. And it's a very nice, right now, poignant little clip. But listen closely to this.
I just think it's an end of an era. It's 10 years of my life, and my children have grown up during it, of course.
That is Robbie Coltrane, finest gamekeeper in Hogwarts, last day on Harry Potter.
I can see the movies is that my children's generation will show them to their children. So you could be watching it in 50 years' time. Easy. I'll not be here, sadly, but don't you think on it for 1 minute. But Hagrid will. Yes.
How weird is it to maybe, I don't know the circumstances behind it or any actor or star that might have been knowing that they're going to pass away, having an illness or on their deathbed. You can sit there and maybe take a little solace and think, wow, I may be gone, but I'm kind of going to be around for a long time because there's animatronic figures of me that talk to the audience in this ride at Universal Studios that talk, and it's kind of alive and stuff. And I have action figures. People see me in movies still moving around and talking and stuff like that. I don't know if any actors or celebrities have that thought when they know they're about to move on to the next plane of existence or whatever or not. But it's got to be kind of a weird, strange, but maybe, I don't know, maybe halfway comforted and feeling a little bit or whatever, knowing that you're still going to be around.
There is something about knowing that, your films, a piece of you lives on forever.
Yeah, and say what you want about things that come and go, but I don't see. I know you and I are going to be two really old guys when we finally hear the news. Well, the Harry Potter rides are being torn down to being replaced with something else. I'm like, wow, that's. I know I'm going to feel old when that's no longer in fashion and goes away. Maybe we'll be around that long. I don't know, but I thought that was a nice little soundbite of him from the anniversary special on that I played that from HBO Max was great. It was a great thing. A lot of them got emotional, especially Emma Watson, who plays Hermione. She was sitting there talking to Rupert Grint and Daniel Radcliffe, and she was getting really emotional about seeing them again and how long ago that really was, and them not knowing what the heck's going to happen. So I would think it would be emotional, too.
In our love of film and discussing films, very few... I can't think of another franchise in my history of watching movies that did what Harry Potter did, and that's keep the core people for 8 films and to watch them literally grow up as the characters did in the books.
And that's interesting, and really kind of only lose one of them to Richard Harris,
right?
Having to replace Dumbledore, and that was it. And that's really good when you last that long and you're able to be a part of that. I always said that about John Williams because when the new Star Wars movies when the prequels were beginning, I'm like, oh, good, they're getting him back to score the prequels. Of course, it's Star Wars, it's John Williams. And then I heard that he was scoring the sequel Star Wars films all the way up to the Rise of Skywalker. And now I'm like, oh, well, he's got another Indiana Jones movie to go. I'm like, I'm like, John Williams, he can't go away. He has to stay here to get he's got this to do. He's got work to do. He can't go anywhere. So I think that's great. We did. I don't know if anybody saw the finale of She-Hulk. I know we talked it to death over the past 3 weeks, and everyone I think is pretty clear on our position on the show. The last episode, it really. I don't know. I'm going to use a term here that everyone should know. I think it really jumped the shark on the last episode. And I knew it's a show where they break the wall and she talks to the audience and she actually acknowledges that it's a TV show and the Marvel Cinematic Universe is fake and it's a Hollywood created thing. But I don't know. It was just a show, I think, out of all the recent shows on Netflix, on Disney Plus from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it has been the one that I have enjoyed the least, I think. And everybody's like, well, you just don't get it. It's a comedy. It's from the comic book. I'm like, okay, that's fine. I still don't like it.
Nope.
None of what you said is going to make me like it by understanding that it's a comedy based on the comic book, because I did try to look at the comic book a couple of times, and I just didn't get into that type of writing.
I'll summarize the problem with She-Hulk.
Well, there's a lot of problems.
But here's the perfect. Where somebody's like, well, you didn't understand it's a comedy. You didn't understand it comes from...
I did understand that.
Here's what I'm saying. When I say you set rules in your universe and then break them, and that's what pulls me out of it. 2 episodes ago, she destroys a parking deck. She destroys all this public property. She picks up somebody's car and throws it. All of this destruction. And the joke is, I'll leave a note.
Yeah.
But then the main crux leading into the finale is she smashed video monitors because she was publicly embarrassed and then broke through a wall and yelled.
And growled.
But somehow that puts her in federal prison.
I guess the video monitors are very expensive.
It makes no sense.
Maybe that's what
they
it is, but
break
that
their
didn't
own
make any
rules
sense.
so much,
Yeah.
they even had to do their Deus Ex Machina moment, where
at the end.
they wrote themselves to where they don't know how to end it, so they just go to the gods, in this case, which is funny, AI Kevin Feige.
Yeah, I just didn't like it.
It was just dumb.
And I understand what they were trying to do with me, they failed. But I think
Even the
ratings,
throwback to the original Hulk Open.
Well, I did like that. The ratings were good. They're going to do a season 2 from what I hear. Speaking on the air.
I'm a big kid, look what I can do. I can wear big kid pants too.
Only Pull-Ups training pants have stretchy sides, like real underpants, for the snuggest, trimmest big kid fit.
And I can pull them off and on.
For protection and fit, there's nothing like Pull-Ups.
Mommy, wow! I'm a big kid now.
It's so handy having Q-tips round the house. You can do so much with Q-tips round the house. Your pets deserve loving care. Clean their ears, eyes, and paws with gentle Q-tips cotton swabs. It's so handy having Q-tips round the house. You can do so much with Q-tips for hygienic first aid. Sterilized Q-tips are the safe way to apply ointments and antiseptics to little cuts and scrapes right on the spot. And Q-tips have a soothing touch. They're soft as pussy willows. You can do so much with Q-tips for your baby. Q-tips were first made for babies and have been used by doctors, nurses, and mothers for over a quarter of a century. Now, modern families find so many uses for Q-tips, they keep a box in every room. It's so handy having Q-tips round the house.
Stand by to receive our transmission.
Hello, and welcome to Star Wars Extra in Focus. Bringing you the latest from across the Star Wars galaxy, I'm your host, Mike Mann.
Hello there.
New York City Comic-Con 2022 premiered a vast array of upcoming Star Wars news and merchandise. Some of the many highlights include highly anticipated releases from the collectible giants such as Funko, Diamond Select, Gentle Giant, Hasbro, and Hyper Sabers, amongst others.
Shut up and take my money.
Phase 2 of Star Wars The High Republic was officially launched with the release of Lyda King's novel, Star Wars The High Republic Cataclysm, in addition to an extensive list of upcoming The High Republic materials leading up to the release of Phase 3 in November 2023. Kang previously wrote the short story Right Hand Man in the anthology novel Star Wars From a Certain Point of View, The Empire Strikes Back. Also announces the upcoming Star Wars Rise of the Red Blade novel by veteran Star Wars writer Delilah S. Dawson, which will be the first Inquisitor-based Star Wars novel. Dawson's previous Star Wars accreditations include novels Star Wars Phasma, The Skywalker Saga, and the Galaxy's Edge Black Spire audiobook, along with a plethora of contributions to Star Wars Insider and Star Wars Adventures comics.
FN 2187, so good to have you back.
Industrial Light and Magic has formally announced they will be opening a new studio in Mumbai, expanding their global visual effects and animation networks. ILM Mumbai will be helmed by Kiran K.P. Prasad, who formerly led Indian production studio Ding, Bangalore, and Chennai. Based in San Francisco, ILM currently operates visual effects and animation studios in Singapore, Vancouver, Sydney, and London. Freelance journalist Christopher Mark announced through Twitter that Lars Mikkelsen will indeed be crossing over to reprise his role as Grand Admiral Thrawn in his live-action debut in the upcoming Star Wars Ahsoka series. Mikkelsen has previously voiced Thrawn in the Star Wars Rebels animated series. Lucasfilm and Disney have yet to officially confirm Mikkelsen's addition to the series. That's all the time we have. Be sure to tune back in next episode for all the latest and greatest in Star Wars. And for Star Wars Extra, I'm Mike Mann. And now back to BK on the air.
I got a bad feeling about this.
America, demand your MTV. I want my MTV.
I want my MTV.
I want my MTV.
MTV, music, television, video music, 24 hours a day, and it's stereo.
Call your cable company and say, I want my MTV.
I had my MTV. That spot was from 40 years ago, 1982. MTV spot with Pat Benatar and Pete Townsend from The Who and a lot of other folks in that spot. So it does make one feel a little weird that it was 40 years ago. I almost said 50, but one day it will be 50 years ago, and I'll be even more surprised by it. Thank you, Mike Mann, with the Star Wars Extra Report. Always nice getting caught up on the world of Star Wars expanded and regular and canon and everything going on with Star Wars, and we appreciate it every Saturday. Let's do a little On This Day in History, October the 15th. Today, on this day in history, 1881, the first American fishing magazine, American Angler, was published. Back in 1881, 1924, U.S. President Calvin Coolidge declared the Statue of Liberty a national monument on this day in 1924. And in 1951, a television series premiered on CBS television. That's right, I Love Lucy. Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz premiered on CBS TV on this day in history in 1951. 1952, the very next year after Lucy premiered, Charlotte's Web by E.B. White and illustrated by Gareth Williams is published by Harper and Brothers. Another great book turned into a movie. You're a fan of Charlotte's Web, right? Didn't you love that movie? I love Templeton because it was Paul Lynde.
Yeah.
He was
sounded
awesome.
just like Paul Lynde.
Do you remember who provided the voice for Charlotte the Spider? It was Debbie Reynolds.
Oh, really?
Carrie Fisher's mom.
Aww.
Yeah, she did the voice of Charlotte. I got sad at the end when Charlotte died and her little babies came along. I couldn't handle it as a kid. I didn't like death. I didn't like Bambi at the end. It messed me up. I'm like, no, things die. What is that? What is it? It's coming back. She's coming back, right? She'll be okay.
Right.
I didn't handle it very well. 1971, the world's first arcade video game, Computer Space, it was called, developed by Syzygy. That's S-Y-Z-Y-G-Y. I think that's how you say that. First demonstrated at the MOA show in the U.S. on this day in 1971. In that video game. You can go online and do a search for the arcade game Computer Space, and you'll see it. It had a big cabinet. It looked like something out of 2001 or some early 70s sci-fi movie. The cabinet did. And I have seen one of them, but I don't think I've ever played the game. 1999 on this day, October 15th, Fight Club premiered, but we won't talk about it. In 2011, let's move on. 2011, Legoland, Florida, the world's largest Legoland theme park, opens in Winter Haven, Florida in 2011 on this day in history. I'm not a big Lego fan. I mean, I know it has its place, and I never played with them as a kid, but I hear it's a really cool place, and I wouldn't mind checking it out and seeing. Oh, I heard the latest rumor from... there's a Twitter page called Inside what's it say? Inside the Magic. They report things that they hear about Disney and Universal that they got in the works and do things, and sometimes they're right. They'll break things and like, wow, they talked about that last year and they were right. They aren't just a rumor mill. They're usually right. They said that new park that Universal's opening up called Epic Universes, which is a few blocks south of them, that's slated to open in 2025. They do have a huge new Harry Potter thing planned.
Really?
To put down there. I'm like, wow. So that means people are going to have to transport. They'll have to transport things to take them from one park to that one now to kind of. You can walk between Universal and Islands of Adventure. They're two parks that are together, or ride the Hogwarts Express to go back and forth. But you can't just walk to this one. This one's like half a mile south of the regular Universal Park. So we'll see how they put that together. Birthdays today include Mario Puzo, American novelist and writer. He wrote The Godfather, Superman the movie, Cotton Club, the movie Earthquake. He died in 1999. Today is Mark Leonard's birthday, American actor. He played Spock's dad in several of the Star Trek films and Star Trek the TV show. He also played General Urko in the TV version of the Planet of the Apes, which was great. And he had a great role in Buck Rogers in the 25th Century, where he played an alien. Did you know that Mark Leonard is the only guy, I think, in Star Trek history that's played a Vulcan, a Klingon, and a Romulan?
Yeah.
All three. He played.
You know where I
Spock's
learned it from?
brother. Where'd you learn it from?
BK on the air.
Did I talk about it in the past? Do you know where he played the Romulan? He played it in Balance of Terror.
You're right.
Where Kirk's
that
they're fighting their submarine fight.
Fantastic.
And he played the Klingon commander at the very beginning of Star Trek: The Motion Picture that gets destroyed by V'ger. That's him with the Klingon makeup on. So that's great. It's also Linda Lavin's birthday today. Alice from Alice, TV show Alice, and she had a regular part on Barney Miller too for a little while. Penny Marshall's birthday. Laverne from Laverne and Shirley, and director as well. And Tanya Roberts, her birthday is today. Charlie's Angels, View to a Kill, James Bond, Sheena, that 70s show. She died in 2021. When we come back, we got 3 national days to tell you what national day it is. I'll tell you what they are when we come back. One of them ties into the TV show that I talk about.
We will return after these messages.
Captain's log, stardate 1710.0. The Starship Enterprise is under heavy attack by an enemy vessel.
Obviously, their weaponry is superior to ours, and they have a practical invisibility screen.
Helm, hard over. Phasers, fire, point blank.
I'm pointing out that we could have Romulan spies aboard this ship.
The Earth Commander will follow. He must. And when he attacks, we will destroy him.
Permit me the glory of the kill, Commander.
Thomason. We have him. Move toward him.
We can get just one phaser going.
Phasers, Mr. Spock.
Impossible, Captain.
We have some of the old-style nuclear warheads aboard. Yes, Commander, but only for self-destruction.
Place one in with the debris.
There's only one Tic Tac, the original mouthwack.
Daddy bought me the best mints money can buy. But nothing matches the whack of a Tic Tac.
I drifted for a while. Lozenges, breath mints, but you can't beat the old whack.
There are lots of substitutions, but there's only one taste sensation like Tic Tac, the original mouthwack.
Now there's a Tic Tac with berry on one side and cherry on the other. The Tic Tac double whack pack.
They say that a friend in need is a friend indeed. When those in the Big Apple are in need of a friend, they call on this man, Robert McCall. He'll even the odds.
You call me when you do. Believe me, I will be there. I'm here to protect you.
Edward Woodward is the Equalizer.
Wednesday nights at 9.
WBHF in Cartersville.
Okay, listen to this. Everyone on Sesame Street is always talking about love. Yuck. But now it's time for me to tell you what Oscar the Grouch loves. The thing that Grouches love best of all. Oh, I love trash. Anything dirty or dingy or dusty. Anything ragged or rotten or rusty. Yes, I love trash.
Yeah, a little Oscar the Grouch there from Sesame Street. You know, he really wasn't a grouch at heart. He had a heart. Sometimes they like Winchester on MASH and Mr. Howell on Gilligan's Island. Those harsh, hard-hearted characters, they did break through it sometimes, and you did find out they were really nice at heart. Well, I play that because today there's 3 national days today. Today is National Grouch Day today, by the way. And did you know Oscar was orange in the first episode of Sesame Street? He was an orange Muppet, not a green one. And
I'm glad he's green.
They turned him green later. He looked much better. And today is National I Love Lucy Day for obvious reasons. I Love Lucy premiered on this day on CBS on this day back in 1952. And also today, I can thank the Avengers, the first Avengers film for the MCU, that taught me what this is. And I had no idea what this was until I heard Tony Stark say it. Today is National Shawarma Day.
You ever tried shawarma? There's a shawarma joint about 2 blocks from here. I don't know what it is, but I want to try it.
I never knew what the shawarma food, the little wrap or whatever it is. I never knew what it was until I didn't know it when he said it. I'm like, made me go investigate. I'm like, what is shawarma? He goes, down the road, so at the end of the Avengers, the post-credit sequence is them all sitting in the restaurant eating shawarma with the destroyed restaurants surrounding them at the end, which is great. And I still haven't had it. I haven't tried shawarma.
Haven't tried it?
So maybe I'll try it sometime. Had you heard of it before till they mentioned it?
Never heard of it.
There's something. See, the Avengers, comic book movies are good for some things. They help you discover things maybe that you haven't heard of before. I wanted to talk about this last week, but I didn't get around to it, but I can get around to it right now. From MeTV, there's a story. It's called There Was Nearly a Spooky Gilligan's Island in the 1990s. They came close to doing it, and I never knew this. It says, however, this was not the first classic TV show that was proposed to be brought back as a horror movie. The idea is older than you think and was proposed for Gilligan's Island in the 90s, believe it or not. James Gunn, known for Guardians of the Galaxy, Suicide Squad, and Slither, recently spoke about a concept that had been floated by Charlie Kaufman, the writer of Indie Darlings, Being John Malkovich, and Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. I think Jim Carrey was in that film, wasn't he? Now, according to Gunn, in the 90s, Kaufman proposed a dark and gritty retooling of the beloved castaways of Gilligan's Island. Quote, a true story. In the late 90s, screenwriter Charlie Kaufman pitched a movie version of Gilligan's Island where the islanders, starving and desperate, started killing and eating each other, James Gunn says, unquote. Like, wow. Okay. According to James Gunn, Warner Brothers wanted to do it, but Sherwood Schwartz, the creator of Gilligan's Island and the Brady Bunch, said, no way, I'm not going to do that. And I can see Sherwood doing that because he protected his property that he owned and had creative control of, kind of like Norman Lear. They wanted their shows to stay the way they wanted them to.
James Gunn could have been ahead of the Walking Dead trend.
He could have been. Of course, Gunn, he was not the mega star, James Gunn, back then that he is now, the creative director. In modern times, fresh off his Guardians of the Galaxy smash hit, he tried to revive the eerie Gilligan's Island reboot again, believe it or not. Warner Brothers and Kaufman were ready to board this 3-hour tour, but once again, Sherwood Schwartz, well, the Schwartz estate at that point, put a stop to it. Quote, anyway, if the Schwartz estate changes their mind, Gunn said, I'm here, unquote. So there's that idea of putting Gilligan's Island together as a bunch of cannibals that have to resort to cannibalism on the island is still out there. So look out. And
a little strange.
I don't know. Watch out, like slathering oil all over yourself or something like that. Ooh, you're oily and you're in the sun. Just stay out there for a little while.
What's cooking?
Little tenderizing.
A little shaking.
Take you down. Go around like that.
Didn't mean to scare you.
The only thing that scares me, Mr. O'Connell, are your manners.
Treasure brought them together.
Oh, my God.
This may be the Book of the Dead.
Danger kept them close.
This just keeps getting better and better.
Now, all that can come between them
If he turns me into a mummy, you're the first one I'm coming after.
is a curse 3,000 years in the making.
We are in serious trouble.
The Mummy, rated PG-13, starts Friday.
And also, having gone to Universal, I have this story about Brendan Fraser. This made me very happy this week when I heard about it. And I mentioned it to you off the air, and you said, yeah, that's good. I heard about that from E.J. Tannigan from JoBlo.com, and it's in on a lot of other sites, too. Brendan Fraser said he'd be down for another Mummy sequel. Good old Brendan Fraser is on the path right now, if you haven't noticed, of a major comeback. He's in the title role of a movie called The Whale that actually got really big kudos in Cannes in England and in Europe, and understand it got Brendan got a standing ovation at the thing, and he was very moved by it. If you can see the video on YouTube, The Whale has been making a film. It's been making the film festival rounds, and on more than one occasion, receiving accolades from the audience, which I'm sure makes everybody feel good. Oscar buzz is already building for Fraser for that movie, and in an age of nostalgic kicks and legacy sequels, the actor is sure to find out how much he's missed in his former popular roles. And I loved him in the movie where he's the throwback from the 50s. He's a kid that comes out from the 50s. And what's it called? Blast from the Past.
Blast from the Past.
Hugh Wilson from the police, from WKRP directed that. And I thought it was a fantastic movie because he gets to come out and see the world as it really is. And Sissy Spacek and Christopher Walken, isn't it? They play his parents. And they're like, we're living in a bunker because nuclear war just hit, and we're going to stay down here. And he finally meets a girl and everything.
Sissy Spacek, talk about a role that I did not expect that she would be playing.
That was surprising.
The disaffected mom who's drinking down in the bomb shelter.
I know. It's a funny movie, and Brendan's great
really
in it.
Good.
He's great in everything. Encino Man was a stupid movie, but he was really goofy and funny in it. He was
George
great.
of the Jungle.
George of the Jungle was great. Dudley Do-Right when he remade these cartoon movies. The movie where he's where he meets what's the pretty lady from England, the actress that Hugh Grant's girlfriend or wife.
Oh,
who am I talking about? You know who I'm talking about. Why can't I think of her name? Where she plays the devil. And grants him wishes.
Right. She was. Why
can't I think?
She was in the first Austin Powers movie.
Elizabeth Hurley.
Elizabeth Hurley.
Yeah. What is the movie where she plays the devil and is seducing him or something, or
Bewitched?
giving him witches? No, it's not Bewitched.
Not Bewitched.
Let's see. I got to find out what it is.
Bedazzled.
Is it? I think it's Bedazzled. Something like that.
It's something like that. It's. Let's see. We're just buying. This is called.
Bedazzled. You're right. 2000. That was a funny movie. I thought it was cool. He's really charming. He's great in the films.
I forgot the movie he was referencing, but Brendan Fraser said, the reason why the Tom Cruise mummy failed.
He says it in the story I got.
Saying this about Tom Cruise, who's obviously he's made more big movies than bad.
Right. Yeah.
He's like, you forgot that the mummy needs to be fun.
Exactly. And that's the one thing that the mummy with Tom Cruise was not.
You can have scares, you can have horror, but it needs to be a fun ride for the audience.
Well, Variety reports on a question Fraser has been asked on whether he'd be interested in returning to the Mummy franchise or not. The star of the Supernatural Adventure series responded, quote, I don't know how it would work, but I'd be totally open if someone came up with the right conceit, unquote. It's what he says. Now, Stephen Sommers, the director of the first two films of the Mummy franchise, commented on why he decided to go with Brandon Fraser, as Rick O'Connell. Quote, he says he could throw a punch and take a punch, and he had a great sense of humor. You really like the guy. He never comes across as cocky or arrogant. He was game for anything we threw at him, unquote. And he goes, and that's exactly what we got in that movie is him. I thought it's a great... It's great at being an Indiana Jones film when it's not an Indiana Jones film. It really was. Now, when Universal Studios tried their hand at a shared universe, taking cue from the franchise juggernaut Marvel Studios, their introduction to the monster universe would be a reboot. Back when they did it, of Fraser's Mummy, we just talked about it. It sounded like it could have been a big success to have heavyweight like Tom Cruise in the starring role. Now, audiences didn't take to it, and neither did I. I actually watched it in a condo in Florida when we were on a trip. I'm like, I didn't see that, and it's on. Let's watch it. And I'm like, I think halfway through my popcorn, I'm like, the best thing about this is the popcorn I'm eating while I was watching it. It's hard. It says, and Fraser, exactly as Alan said, he goes, it's hard to make that Mummy movie. The ingredient is that we had going for our Mummy is which I didn't see in that film exactly was the fun. That was what was lacking in that incarnation. It was too much of a straight ahead horror movie, and the Mummy should be a thrill ride, not just terrifying and scary and pretty much flatline. I know it's difficult to pull it off. He goes, I tried it 3 times. So, and we had 3 Mummy movies. So spot on. I agree with that 100%. You can't just throw Tom Cruise at something and go, well, it'll be a success. And their monster universe kind of started. They were going to start it with Dracula. What was it? Dracula Untold with Luke Evans as playing Vlad the Impaler. Great movie. It was fantastic, and I thought that would have been a great start to their new Universal Monsters film franchise. But it flopped at the theater. But I thought it's 10 times better as Cruise's Mummy, though, than better. If you get a chance to watch it with Luke Evans, it's a great Dracula film showing who he was as Dracula and how he grew up and the vengeance that he felt because his wife was killed, and then he made a pact saying, and he turns into Dracula and becomes a monster, but he still has that heart that he had before, but he's still a vampire. So it was actually a very well done movie. But they've got more in the works. I hear that there's a Bride of Frankenstein in the works, too. And at one point, Tim Burton's name was attached to it. So I don't know what's going on with Marvel's monster stuff. Heck, if Marvel does it, I'm sorry, with Universal's monster, if Marvel does it with the werewolf and some other things, I'll be glad to stick with them because it's Halloween. It's time to watch some horror films.
Oh, definitely.
And there's a lot of great horror out there, which is fun. And we even talked about, what do you introduce to someone who doesn't like horror? Well, we made a list of it on one of our Halloween specials. It's Pete Calendar. We'll have more talk when we come back.
She's alive! Alive!
We'll return after these messages.
Hello there. You know, I've been all around this wonderful world of ours, and in all of this world, nothing else is silly putty. What is silly putty? Well, it's a real solid liquid. If you pull it so, it'll go forever, like taffy. But if you give it a sharp tug, it'll break like a biscuit. Now, when you make silly putty round and drop it, it'll bounce higher than a rubber ball. And here's something else you can do with silly putty. Flatten it, press a picture in your newspaper, lift it, stretch it this way and that, and you'll get something that's really funny. Always put your silly putty back in its egg, or it will run slowly away. You can buy silly putty for $1 wherever toys are sold. And remember, nothing else is silly putty.
It's okay if you don't understand what he's talking about. He probably doesn't either. It's BK on the air on AM 1450, FM 100.3, and online using the Tunein radio app.
A little nonsense now and then is relished by the wisest men.
Simon sets the pace. You follow right along. Light the lights that Simon lights, or he'll tell you that you're wrong. Simon's a computer. Simon has a brain. To either do what Simon says or else go down the drain. Simon is a master. He tells you what to do. But you can master Simon if you follow every clue. And if you think Simon's fun at the party, wait till you play it alone.
Simon with 5 ways to play from MB Electronics.
Is there any doubt when you actually hear Vincent Price's voice talking about anything? I mean, there's another commercial spot that he does that I do sometimes. There was a candy bar that came out that was it was like a very thick peanut butter bar made out of it was like a peanut butter based candy bar, and it was called Peanut Butter with No Jelly Bar. It's like, it's peanut butter. You know, peanut butter and jelly. Well, this is peanut butter and no jelly bar, and it was just a great thing. They did a shrunken head. Remember the little shrunken head you could order? There was a little head that you could take.
No, I don't.
It was actually a little thing you could get that you could get it was like a head. It looked like from a voodoo guy or whatever, and you could shrink it. And it was a little thing you could do. It was Vincent Price saying, the shrunken head. You can buy it and have fun with it and stuff. And like, only he could talk about something like that. Well, I play the Simon spot because I have a story here that I've been wanting to do, and I put it off. This is from MeTV. Milton Bradley launched its classic Simon game in a boogie wonderland. What do I mean by that? Well, if you listen, I'll tell you. The name Studio 54 is synonymous with the disco era. Boy, is it. The world-famous nightclub conjures up images of sheer 70s decadence. The former CBS television studio was once the home of black and white game shows like What's My Line, Password, and Beat the Clock, just to name a few. 2 decades later, it was a joint where Bianca Jagger and Debbie Harry from Blondie brushed their bare shoulders dancing, where Andy Warhol and Rick James might be found sitting together off the dance floor. It was a world-famous joint stuffed with Love Boat guest stars, glittering gowns, and mirrors of Colombian powder. We all know what that is. Now, the nightclub was known for its lighting, too. Lighting experts from theater and television rigged up the system of lighting in Studio 54, which was unlike most darkened dance halls, splashed color and spotlights on its crowd as they danced. However, on the evening of May 15th, 1978, a different kind of lighting system was hanging from the ceiling, a different kind of party. Milton Bradley, a family gaming company best known for hits like Battleship, Operation, Candyland, think of the game that they made, was hosting a launch party for its latest toy, Simon. And you've had a Simon game. They even make smaller ones for trips you can take in the car now. If you can get kids to play it and get off the phone. There's probably a Simon game app that you can play on the phone. Now, the new electronic brain looks something right out of science fiction. If somehow they had yanked the blinking brain out of the robot's head on Lost in Space. 4 colored panels, red, blue, yellow, and green, sat atop a black plastic disc. A basic game of memory, Simon asked its players to repeat a pattern of flashing lights. The colored panels would flash in random order with a series of chiming tones. It was your task to smack the buttons on top in the same order in which they were presented to you. Undoubtedly, much of Simon's immediate success came on the back of, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, we think. The flashy primary colors and electronic blurts brought to mind the system used by the scientists to communicate with the aliens in the climax of the 1977 Spielberg classic. Remember when they were playing the doo-doo-doo-doo-doo behind them? Sure, the simple, dumb circuits inside Simon were not exactly artificial intelligence, but playing the game felt like taking on a computer. At least for me it did. It was a child's bedroom version of Kasparov versus Deep Blue, if you think about it, because you had to win against this thing that was powered by batteries. Okay, even if it was not quite that brainy, the man behind Simon certainly was. Inventor Ralph H. Baer had many other ingenious devices to his name. He fled the Nazis in the 40s. Baer, he came to America in 1938 after fleeing the Nazis in the 30s. After serving in World War II, the engineer went to work for a defense contractor. Now, according to the Smithsonian, his brain dreamt up some clever innovations such as a voice-activated intercom, the first light gun video game. He also came up with a talking bicycle speedometer and an odometer and a quirky talking doormat dubbed the Chat Mat. And I had not heard of the Chat Mat before. But Simon, the game, remains his most famous creation. Originally, when Baer pitched the game to Milton Bradley, his game was housed in a rectangular box, not its familiar circular shape that we're used to. Back at Studio 54, at the midnight launch party, a 4-foot replica of Simon, the game, hung from the ceiling. If you ever thought of disco lights when playing the game, that was not a coincidence. Next time you dust off, the old Simon game, you might ought to just go ahead and put a Bee Gees song in there while you're flashing, or any disco song from the 70s, and think about it while you're playing Simon. I guess Simon would be kind of a game like Tetris. I think eventually you're going to lose it. Or did it go so long, did it stop? I never went that far with it to where it just got to the end, or it did as many repeats that it did for you to remember.
It was tough. I remember
it got on up there.
I'd be happy if the same color repeated 4 times in a row.
Right.
I could remember that.
Come on.
But if it was alternating all the time, I'd get maybe 7 in and that's it. We're done.
Right. Simon was a fun game, and I look at it now. A lot of those games that we had before the video games really started coming in, or before we could play them at home, a lot of the electronic games were very interesting. There was a game called Blip, and I play it on the podcast, the commercial for it sometime. It was a little black electronic game where you had 3 buttons in a row on your side, and on the other side of the game where the other person was playing you, they had 3 buttons. And this little red dot would go across the black screen back and forth between the both of you. And what it was is, when it come to you, you had to get right exactly which slot it was going to go in on your side and press that button to send it back to the other guy. Almost like a Pong, but different. And if you didn't hit the button in time that it went into to send it back to the other guy, he got the point. It was a reactionary reflex kind of a thing, too. And it was an electronic game, but when you played it, it ran on batteries. But when you played it, yeah, sure, it had a lit red diode that went back and forth. But when you heard it playing, you heard this whirling mechanic thing inside. It's a mechanical, and it's like so what it was is, inside, it wasn't a video screen, is this little red light was on this track inside that knew where it was. And it was a very intricate game. If you opened it up and looked at it, and it was electronic, but that was as far as it went. I mean, it run on batteries. The rest of it was totally mechanical on the inside, but you thought it was an electronic game. Digital Derby, remember that when you had the little race car, little handheld race car, where you're like, okay, if I got to run around these cars, if I don't, this big red crash thing will happen. That means they hit a car. It was all just inside mechanics, but the only thing that lit up in the game, I think, was the red crash exclamation symbol when you hit. So they were very archaic back in the time, but they were fun. I remember them well.
I had an older game. It was all mechanical.
And you had the football games and the basketball games.
Well, yeah, those little
Mattel,
LED ones, which was truly electronic.
One
of the games that I loved, we had this thing called a parachute drop. And there was a disc, and there were these little like ships with little holes, and you loaded these little weighted things, and you looked through a periscope like you were a bomber.
Really? Yeah.
And you're moving it back and forth, would move it along this track, and you would see the disc through the viewfinder,
right?
And you would have to drop the parachute or the bombs or whatever try to land them inside, almost like you're a bombardier. So you had to release one, but it was all mechanical. It was all just hand-eye coordination and moving, and you try to until you were all out of your balloons or whatever you were dropping. And then you try to get as many into the cups.
Was it called Shoots Away? Was that what
Maybe
it's called?
Maybe that's what it is.
All right, you got to come around and look at this. Is this I got it on the computer here. You need to look at this for a second and make sure I've got the right one, because that looks like exactly what you explained to me. Shoots Away, parachute drop. That's funny. I'd never seen that before.
I had that.
Is awesome.
I played the heck out of that. I played the heck out of that. You want to talk about simple mechanical things? Perfection and superfection.
Oh, yeah. Perfection, for years, gave me a heart attack.
Yes.
Because I knew it was about to explode. I'm like, and to me, when it went off, it wasn't like, oh, all the pieces just came up. To me, it was a nuclear explosion.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. All over the place.
Oh, no. That's terrible.
Perfection played a lot, and then superfection, where you're like having to make the pieces and put them together.
Oh, that was, yeah.
Oh, loved it.
And it wasn't very hard. It's just that you're against the clock and you're panicking.
Mm-hmm.
That's what makes you lose control.
And you got better just by playing it more, because you started memorizing what the shapes look like and where they were on the board. Because the first time you're like, X, where's the X? It goes, and then of course you're running out of time.
I don't want to say I cheated, but with my sister once, we were playing and I hid one of the pieces. It wasn't amongst one of them. We were playing and it was her turn. She's like, I don't see it. Oh, time's up, sis. You lost. Sorry.
Some of those really basic games, to us, that was like incredible.
They were great. They were great. I had a Snoopy
hours and hours and hours.
Right, quick. I had a Snoopy ride where it was Snoopy's doghouse was on a wire and it had a little propeller on it, and you could fly him around and dip it down and pick up things with his hook and fly it in a circle. And it was the most fun game I'd ever played. You know, it was
hours and
hours of entertainment. Where's Barry? He's back there playing the Snoopy game. He's been out there since 9 this morning. Yeah, but he's still doing it.
Yeah,
he's occupying his time. Speak on there. We'll be back.
Blip, 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 blip. Blip is the digital game that you can take with you anywhere. With the batteries you supply, the light-emitting diode zips across the screen. You try to press the right button to send it back. An automatic readout keeps score. 2 people or only one can play. When you play with Blip, you get carried away. And so does Blip. Blip, the digital game from Tomy.
When you're into perfection, keep on your toes. You have to be quick, cause here's how it goes. Push the plunger down, set the timer. Fit the pieces in place. Don't be slow in perfection. You've gotta move on fast, or the pieces pop up before you put in the last. And that's perfection.
Perfection, complete with playing box, mechanical timer, and 25 geometric shapes. From Lakeside.
For the commercial, friends, when my room becomes soiled, I use Come Clean, the spot remover with the applicator top. One dab, and it's clean. There. Remember, in my court, it's Come Clean. Now, back to the case.
Hey, we're back. BK on the air here, winding down the program, creeping up to the top of the hour. I do want to remind you, coming up this Thursday, what's the date on Thursday? Here's my calendar here. That is coming up on Thursday, the 20th, October the 20th. Be sure to check out, it's planning stages, but we're going to do a live YouTube video with Dave Sundstrom, hashtag the good stuff. He's got a fantastic YouTube channel. It's going to be Dave Sundstrom, myself, Pat McCormack of the Golden Rage of TV, and Thrash Pondo, another great retro brother of mine out there that's floating around in the retro vintage world of nostalgia. We're all going to get together for like a meeting of the minds, a symposium of wonderful milestone memories growing up that we had as kids and teenagers, just memories that we remember that we'll never forget that happened to us as kids, and it's going to get pretty retro and nostalgic. It's going to be 7 or 8 p.m., something like that, but just stay tuned. I'll let you know about it, but pencil that in on your schedule this upcoming the next Thursday, October the 20th, on Dave Sundstrom's, that's Sundstrom is how you spell his last name, Dave Sundstrom, and hashtag the good stuff. He's got a great live video YouTube channel, just like Pat McCormack and Thrash Pondo. I have a story here from Joy Nolfi I want to talk about from Entertainment Weekly. Did you know? I did not know that Pierce Brosnan was up for Batman and Bruce Wayne in Tim Burton's Batman in '89.
Really?
I had no idea that he was one of the people that wanted to play him. And this story came out this week from Pierce himself. It says Pierce Brosnan's emotions sent out a bat signal of distress when he realized a playful comment says a playful comment that he made might have cost him the lead role in Tim Burton's DC movie masterpiece Batman back in 1989. Quote, Pierce Brosnan, this is him saying it, I went up for Batman way back in the day when Tim Burton was doing it. Obviously, I didn't get the job, unquote. And the Black Adam star who plays Dr. Fate in the Black Adam, which is in theaters now, told Jimmy Fallon on this past Wednesday's episode of The Tonight Show, quote, I remember saying something stupid to Tim Burton. I said, I can't understand any man who would run around wearing underpants outside of his trousers, unquote. That's all he said to Tim Burton. Now, the British actor went on to lead the James Bond blockbuster film franchise throughout the late 90s and early 2000s, as we know, and admitted that, though he didn't play Batman for Burton, the best man got the job, he said, who was Michael Keaton, referring to who was eventually cast. Quote, Dr. Fate and I were meant to meet on the same page, he added about his role in Black Adam, which is in theaters. However, voicing anticipation for his character in Black Adam, another DC comic adaptation in which he plays the iconic figure opposite Dwayne Johnson. Keaton's performance in Batman cemented, as we know, his A-list status in Hollywood after teaming with Burton for both Batman in 1989 and Batman Returns in 1992. He was set to reprise the role in a shelved Batgirl film, which got shelved. He will instead make his long-awaited return, Keaton that is, as the superhero in the DC Extended Universe feature, The Flash. So there's a little Batman history that I had no idea that Pierce Brosnan was up for Bruce Wayne. I guess I could see it because I'm sure I've never. Pierce can do an American accent. I've heard him do it. Mm-hmm. But now that Michael Keaton's been on it, some things, the further you get away from something, you go, I don't know if I can see that or not.
Right.
I don't know.
That's
it's
kind of
hard
where
for
I
me
am.
to see it now. So
it's like,
and I like Pierce Brosnan. He wasn't my favorite Bond, and I think he was he was very successful with Remington Steele, and he did some horror appearances in England, some horror films and some horror TV shows I remember as a kid. I talked about this last week. This is another leftover turkey Thanksgiving, kind of a leftover food here in the fridge from MeTV. There are 10 classic TV and movie versions of Monopoly, and I want to go through a few of them right now. Just because it's I Love Lucy Day today, because of the premiere of I Love Lucy, one of them was I Love Lucy. The 50th anniversary collector edition of I Love Lucy version of Monopoly features 29 of the funniest episodes from the series as the properties on the board. You can even use the famous wine vat as your character token. So I've never had that version, but that's kind of funny. Remember when Lucy crushed the grapes with the other lady in the wine vat? Do you remember that one?
Yeah.
That was funny.
Most of them.
Number 2, I had this one, but I don't have it anymore. I don't know where it went. Star Trek. There have been plenty of Star Trek versions of Monopoly. You can use your Federation credits to purchase properties or alliances in the limited edition of Star Trek Monopoly, which featured characters from Star Trek, the original series. Now, other versions came out, included Star Trek Continuum, and a Star Trek The Next Generation version came out, because, they're going to cover all the bases on that. There was a Golden Girls Monopoly game. I didn't know about that. Did you hear about the Golden Girls?
I did not know about that.
There was a Looney Tunes version. I've seen the cover of that one, but I've never played it. It says buy and sell Looney Tune characters rather than properties in this collector's edition of Monopoly. As expected, Community Chest and Chance in this one cards are played with are replaced with What's Up Doc cards and That's All Folks cards, which is pretty funny. Now, if you, for example, while rolling doubles mean you can roll again or use a special effect per Hasbro.com. If you were to roll a double ones in Looney Tunes, it says you're as sweet like Tweety, and every other player must pay you $50 in that version of Monopoly. So they actually fine-tuned some of the rules.
Changed some of the rules
on some of them. James Bond had a Monopoly game. That one sounds interesting. As a world-renowned spy meets a world-renowned game. Go across the board and collect 25 of the Bond films and create safe houses and headquarters. According to the 007 store,
safe houses.
Yeah, playing pieces include the Spectre symbol, I guess the octopus, Odd Job's bowler hat, Rosa Kleb's poison tip shoe for the shoe, and the Lotus Spirit S1 sub car from The Spy Who Loved Me, and the Ecrastar Bead Jet from Octopussy, and you could play also the iconic 007 logo. That was the playing pieces. Ghostbusters had a Monopoly game. I never saw and played the Ghostbusters one. I have played the Star Wars one. Star Wars had, and I think probably has had a few more versions than one. of
I had Star Wars, and I believe I had a Lord of the Rings version as well.
Did you know the Goonies had a Monopoly game too? The Goonies from the 80s. And The Godfather had a Monopoly game. It says build your hideouts and compounds around the classic locations from The Godfather in this version of Monopoly. No railroads here, rather the delivery truck, getaway car, fishing boat, and the passenger train. Pick up friends and enemy cards to collect your $200 salary as you pass go in the Godfather one. And I never played this one. Back to the Future Monopoly game. It says, great Scott, you will go back in time to create your Monopoly game. Once you purchase your properties, you'll want to add some plutonium rods and plutonium cases to increase their value in this Back to the Future version. Choose from the DeLorean, a hoverboard, Einstein, Marty's hat, and the clock from the Hill Valley Tower. Those are your playing pieces.
You know, I would get that just for the fact that it's one of my favorite trilogies. I mean, it's one of those.
Well,
just watch it as one long movie. I
don't know if I gave it to you off air or on air, but I brought you back a chocolate bar from Universal. It was a Jaws bar.
You don't remember?
Did I say it on air or off air?
You did it on air.
I know. I took a picture of it, too, and posted it. Well, here's the thing. When I was in line to leave and I ran into the Universal store, I'm like, wait, I don't have it. I got to get that for Alan. And I saw two of them. It came down to the Jaws bar, and they had a Back to the Future bar as well. And I'm like, I'll get him the Jaws. That's a little more rare.
So I can tell you this. I've eaten half.
Did you eat some of it already, the Jaws bar?
I know.
Does it taste like a shark?
I now know why they call it a chocolate-flavored bar
does it have
and not
a bite?
a chocolate
Does it have
bar.
a bite?
It tastes like it's made out of something other than like it's manufactured, like the Replicator. Here's our version of the chocolate bar.
Well, it was bought for more novelty than the tastiness of it.
I purposely took a picture. I haven't posted it where I took like a bite, and I want to post it. Say this is me taking a bite out of Jaws.
Oh, and that's perfect. And have it sticking out of the pack of the bar. That'd be a great photo. You take a picture of that. That's great. Yeah, we just thought about it. I'm like, I get Alan something.
But thank you. No, I love the fact that it was a Jaws, literally a Jaws candy bar. They had
a Jurassic Park one. They had a lot with their Universal properties. I'm
sure.
Candy bar, and I'm sure they all were chocolate flavored. They weren't really chocolate.
You're Universal. You can't have a relationship with Hershey.
No, we got to save as much money as possible and make you pay the most for the cheapest crap in the entire world.
We've got a Nigerian
just
prince.
like Disney does. Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
You know what always gets better?
I'm surprised. I got to just say this because I can't believe Eric hasn't called back. He wanted to complain about Blade.
He did? Oh, okay.
Badly. He posted on my page. He texted, I think, you and I.
Well, we'll have to wait till next
time. I got to talk about this.
We're out of time.
Well, he chose not to call.
But I wonder what's going on with it. Have they?
I thought they were going to indefinitely postpone it.
Probably have, unless they find a director, so I don't know. That's a movie I did like the first Blade with the West. I like the first two. I thought
I've never seen
the one with Ryan Reynolds in it is terrible. That one, I think it was the third one. I can't remember. But you never saw the first one?
Never saw it.
Oh, the first Blade is really good. It's actually very good. It's the movie that, like I said, has pulled Marvel out of the red and saved them from bankruptcy. It was a success for them. It wasn't Iron Man helped, but
I think it's because most people didn't think it was a comic book.
They probably didn't, and it actually is. It's from the Tomb of Dracula comic book, which was actually a great comic book by Marvel. Another monster that they kind of did. But a
lot of the quirky series things on TV were based off. Like even The Walking Dead was based off of a comic book first.
Right, it was a comic book before it was anything, right? But it was an independent comic. It was Marvel or DC.
It wasn't a big one, but I think people would be shocked to know how many really well written storylines come from the pages of illustrated comic books before turning into movies.
Very much so. Also, I wasn't big. I was like, I either read Marvel or DC. I don't really read any other comic book companies. Well, I did get into independents, and one of the best ones that another company did, I think it was called Dark Horse Comics, did this, was the Aliens comic book they did. And did you know that I'll do the story next week.
Their version of Aliens vs. Predator should have been what we got in the
also
theater.
they had one called Newt's Tale. They did a backstory of Newt and see what happened to her. It's not. I don't know if it's Dark Horses. Another company is doing a new comic book based on an Aliens character, and it's called. And I'll talk about it next week. I don't have enough time right now, but I'll tantalize you with it. It's Aliens Vasquez. Is what it's called.
I saw that.
Did you see that?
Yeah, a standalment story of Vasquez.
We're going to see about her backstory and what she did and how she led up to being part of the Space Marines.
Did the actress herself, isn't she
Jeanette
Goldstein?
Yeah. She might be, yeah.
I thought I saw a promo photo of her saying,
go out there
I'm
and
so
check
proud
it out.
to be part of the, helping to tell the backstory
Go
of
out there
Vasquez.
and check it out. I'll do the story next week probably because it'll still be relevant. And it's not out yet, so there's nothing to break about it. But, comic books have been responsible for a lot. A lot of people think comic books are like, and my stepdad never pronounced it right. He goes, you still read those comedy books? I'm like, it's not comedy books, it's comic books. Get it right.
I think
You're
people
saying it wrong.
mistake just because it's hand-drawn and cartoonish that they're cartoons.
But they're not.
They're not.
I mean, they're...
there's some that cater to a young audience.
Yeah, of course. And there's some like Woody
There's
Woodpecker.
some that if
and
had my
some of the
mom
other stuff.
known what I was reading, she'd be like,
"Oh yeah,
what are you reading?"
Yeah, and they came up with the Comics Code Authority to watch out for that, and then they got rid of it. So some of the Daredevil and Batman's graphic novels got pretty darn violent there.
I mean,
some
just
stuff going
any
on.
of the Alan Moore stuff, period.
Oh, yeah. And Alan Moore wrote Swamp Thing. He came up with Swamp Thing.
Yeah.
It's BK on there. We had a good time. Hear me on the podcast. See you next week. BK on the Air was sponsored today by Galaxy Glue.
Galaxy Glue, Galaxy Glue. What would we do without Galaxy Glue? Galaxy Glue, Galaxy Glue. The light would go to pieces without Galaxy Glue.
A part of me, like my anatomy, much like the stars are to the sky. Look up and there's another one to buy, and I wonder why I can't live my life without them. They stick to me, they stick to you.
Galaxy Glue, Galaxy Glue. What would we do without Galaxy Glue? Galaxy Glue, Galaxy Glue. The light would go to pieces without Galaxy Glue.
For sex appeal and for my thrills and ills, they all make claims to be the best. Try one and there's a better one to test. Then it comes to me. Stop and think they couldn't possibly be all they say, worth all I pay.